go through and we put together like, hey, this is where everybody's saying you're going to go. We did the same thing with Taj. Was able to get Taj to come back. Because if you're going to go like 6th or 7th round, or you're going to be a free agent, in the world that we live in now in NIL, I can guarantee more money than what some of these NFL teams can if you are talking about the possibility of making the roster. And so it was great to have Emma in there, because you're talking about Jacob Rodriguez and his wife and her understanding the things that can change them as a young couple, the way they can start life off together. I mean, I really do think that Jacob Rodriguez is an NFL player. I think he's going to play for a long time. But I think coming back and putting if he doesn't get hurt 2 years ago, maybe he does leave. But him getting hurt 2 years ago, I think it gives us more time to put more stuff on tape. And so that's what goes into it, like exactly where you're going to go in the NFL draft, what is everybody saying, and what they think you should do.
And then you mentioned Emma. Jacob was telling me that you have a note on your desk from her. Curious about your relationship with her and if you're comfortable sharing what that note says.
Well, it just says, I love your office, your new office, Coach. We love you. You know, the one thing that we try to do at Texas Tech with our players and our families of our players is make them feel welcome in that building. I'm not one of these coaches that just has a designated parent day that can come to practice. Our parents can come to any practice. It's always open, and their wives can come. We've got a couple guys that are married on the team, and I do that because they're a part of this. Like, that's part of Jacob's why, and you know, for me to ignore that doesn't make a lot of sense. Whenever I can, you know, make her be a part of this, it's easier for him to really play at another level whenever he knows how much we respect her and that she is a part of our family at Texas Tech.
How important, I guess, speak to Darcel a little bit too.
Yeah.
And then obviously the importance of James for you guys.
So it's huge getting Darcel back at Texas Tech. He loves this place. I mean, you know, he played at Texas Tech and understands, you know, the tradition and how important it is to this fan base. He's a great coach. He is a phenomenal recruiter. And one thing, the other piece to where we try to blend our families and their families is, you know, the wives and the kids come up to practice too, especially on Wednesdays afternoon. And man, he's a great dad, and it's great for our players to see him interact with his wife and his kids. And I think that builds what we're trying to build at Tech. I'm proud of him. It's awesome that he's the 40 under 40. And then James has been such a big piece of what we're doing at Texas Tech. And it's really cool to see a guy where he came from, how hard he's worked to get to where he is, to be recognized by that magazine. I don't know many times that you haven't had just coaches recognized, and for him to be recognized in that magazine is really cool.
Obviously, a really good coach. You guys does things the right way. Talk of him going to Notre Dame.
Yeah.
How big of a fit was that for Texas?
He was going. Thank God for his oldest daughter. She cried all day, and I kept encouraging that. Like, you know, make sure your dad knows how much you love Lubbock, Texas, and all your friends. And you know, but I really thought he was going. We were down to the kind of the final hour, and it was huge from the standpoint. He was a big part of putting this roster together. He can build such relationships. He's a no-nonsense, no BS guy, and so I think the players really appreciate and trust that, and they know where they stand with him. Sometimes they might not like it, you know, of some of the stuff that he says, but he's extremely honest. And one thing about him, he has a lot of numbers to back stuff up. But it was big to keep him and trying to continue the momentum that we had built at that time, and that just increased the momentum, you know, to show that we were able to hang on to somebody like James Blanchard.
Coach, a lot's been made of the money that's been spent, not just on facilities, but player roster improvements for you guys. Do you feel at all? Do you feel those expectations now with all that money being spent?
Yeah, you know, a really good friend of mine, Jack Richards, his son, he he was at Texas Tech, and then his son played at South Lake Carroll, Jackson, and then played at Texas Tech. He sent me a text probably a month ago, and he said it's all perspective. It's either pressure or opportunity. It's your choice to decide which way you look at it. I know there's pressure, man. I understand how important this year is, but I still remember in 2006, I said this to Emily Jones after we won state. She asked the question about now the expectation at Cedar Hill. I would rather be here than be at a place to where you're hoping like crazy that everything goes right just to maybe win 4 or 5 games. We've got to have a lot of things go right because we want it, but everybody does. You've got to keep your quarterback healthy. You've got to play at a high level. But I know there's a lot of expectations, and what my job that I'm going to really try to do is keep the pressure on me and the coaches, and let the players. The pressure will come from them if they're not playing at the standard that we're supposed to play at. I want the pressure. If they'll go out and they'll do what they're supposed to do and play at the level they're supposed to play at, they're going to make mistakes. Just make them full speed. They shouldn't feel the pressure. Let us have the pressure and see if we can't go out and meet those expectations.
So for us, I feel like we've helped our depth.
Defensively, from a points per game and from a yards per game standpoint, I'm sure the defense wasn't where you wanted it to be, but I know coaches look at other things to determine success. Here to have the season you want to have, what does defensive success statistically look like to you guys in Texas Tech?
Yeah, we've got to be better in the red zone. That's one of the biggest things. I mean, you got to make people kick field goals or stop people in the red zone. You can't have a high percentage of touchdowns in the red zone. We have got to hit the quarterback. I mean, my 3 years here, we've not hit the quarterback at the level that I've been a part of in the past at other places. We've got to go hit the quarterback, whether that's pressures and then also sacks. That's one thing that was really big on the guys that we brought in. You're talking about Lee Hunter, A.J. Holmes, Skylar Gill-Howard, Romello Height, and David Bailey. Not only the sacks they created, but they're probably as high as anybody in the country when you put them all together of the amount of pressures that they generated last year. I think those are the two of the biggest things that we've got to get better at whenever it comes, because the more we hit the quarterback, the better we're going to be in the secondary. The better we're in the secondary, the more we're going to get to hit the quarterback. We spent a lot of time evaluating defensive talent, brought a lot of defensive players in. I mean, the only room that we didn't add anybody in was the inside linebacker room, and we had so many guys coming back.
Coach, I know you said before that you're not terribly involved in the actual numbers of those contracts, but as a coach and as a mentor, how are you talking to these kids about not looking at each other in terms of number value at all and just getting on the field and playing as teammates?
Yeah, I think that goes into your culture. You got to realize, I mean, it's real money. Guys are making different amounts of money in the locker room. One thing that you better understand, if you dream to play in the NFL, your contract's not going to be the same as the guy next to you. And if that's what you focus on, then you're going to spend a lot of time wasting a lot of energy. If guys, you want to increase that, then, focus on what you can control. And that's your game and how hard you're practicing and how hard you're playing. And good things will happen. I mean, I've always said any good team that I've been on, whenever the team was successful, then the individuals were successful. It's really hard to be a successful individual on a selfish and a bad team, no matter what sport it is.
Coach, you mentioned a lot. There's so much money in the roster, and I know you can't talk about anybody specifically, but how has NIL and the rev share and all this affected like your high school recruiting?
The high school recruiting now has shifted really to rev share, and you've got to balance that from the standpoint, if you're bringing in a high school player that you're going to pay at a certain level that maybe you're paying the same as somebody that's on their current roster, they better be in your 2 deep. Or the way I look at it, if they're not in your 2 deep, it's almost like dead salary cap money in the NFL. You just have money sitting there. And so we're looking, you've heard me say this, production over potential. Well, now you're looking at potential. Well, that potential, you better believe really strongly can be in your too deep if you're going to operate outside of maybe paying a high school kid more than you're paying somebody that's going to be on your current roster.
How big is like Blanche been? I know you talked about like his relationship building and all that, but like Blanche and some of the other guys that you haven't talked about yet as far as divvying out those numbers and trying to figure out how you can manage this out.
Well, the good thing about Blanchard, where I try to stay out of it, is I'm a very emotional person, and emotion does not need to come in these conversations. This is business. Whether we like it or not, I know this college football is business. And so with Blanchard, he is he's not an emotional person. It is business. It's very black and white. We do have a couple of companies that we work with. They are not at the point to where they're evaluating high school talent, but they do evaluate every college player. And they can give us what they think either their NFL grade is going to be and or what their NIL value is in their opinion versus everybody else. And so we try to gather as much information that keeps the emotion out of it. It still sometimes, I think, gets emotional because depending on who you're dealing with, if you're dealing with a parent versus if you're dealing with an agent, are you dealing with an agent that's truly an agent? Are you dealing with an agent that's really not an agent and this is the first time he's ever done anything like this? There is some skewed reality. I know James enjoys dealing with real agents. I think that's the next step of college football is some kind of certification for these agents like it is in the NFL. Not only to protect the school, but more important, to protect the player. Because some of these players are paying a crazy amount of percentage of their contracts to agents that are, it makes no sense whatsoever.